Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into a seriously volatile geopolitical situation today that has massive implications, not just for global security, but right down to what you're paying at the pump. We're unpacking the recent military escalations that are severely testing the ceasefire between the US, Israel, and Iran. By looking at the facts on the ground, the political rhetoric, and the resulting economic shockwaves, we're going to see exactly how an overseas standoff translates directly to your wallet.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to hit 4 key areas today. First, the ceasefire currently under fire. Second, the red lines and rhetoric. Third, the global oil shockwave. And fourth, potential paths to peace.
So, starting right off with part 1, the ceasefire under fire.
Just to get you up to speed on the facts on the ground, things escalated incredibly quickly overnight. First, Iran launched a ballistic missile toward Kuwait. Then, by morning, US forces had to shoot down an Iranian drone right near the critical Strait of Hormuz. And it didn't stop there. Later on, US Central Command executed strikes targeting 5 Iranian attack drones sitting right at a launch site, a move that Iranian state TV immediately condemned. When you look at that rapid sequence of events, you really get a sense of just how fragile this current peace actually is.
Now, what's really interesting here is who is actually pulling the trigger. According to reports, at the start of this operation, the Iranians established localized command and control. So what does that actually mean for the standoff? Well, it means we're probably dealing with independent, local commanders operating entirely on their own authority. It isn't necessarily a direct, top-down order from the highest levels of the Iranian government for every single skirmish. And a decentralized structure like that makes holding a ceasefire incredibly tricky, because one local decision can literally spark an international incident.
Which brings us to part 2, red lines and rhetoric.
Right now, we are looking at a total diplomatic stalemate. On one side, President Trump's absolute top priority is ensuring Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon, and the US is making it crystal clear they are in absolutely no rush to make a deal. On the flip side, Iran's leaders are publicly showing zero signs of backing down. They want to project to everyone in Iran that the regime is strong, and they officially refuse to be pushed back by US rhetoric. So you've got these two deeply entrenched, uncompromising public stances making diplomacy really challenging. President Trump hammered this home by pushing back hard on the idea that domestic politics would somehow force his hand. He said they thought they were going to outweight me. We'll outweight him. He's got the midterms. I don't care about the midterms. That is a very clear signal to the international community. The U.S. negotiating strategy is simply not going to be dictated by the pressure of domestic election cycles.
Meanwhile, an Iranian security official went ahead and laid out their absolute red lines, the things they will not negotiate away. Number 1, the right to enrich uranium. 2, the actual possession of enriched uranium. 3, authority over the Strait of Hormuz. And 4, the removal of sanctions. When you stack that up against the US priority of preventing a nuclear Iran, points 1 and 2 are obvious, massive friction points. And point 3, authority over the Strait of Hormuz, well, that brings us right back to those drone strikes we were just talking about.
And guys, here is the sober reality of this diplomatic gridlock. Analysts are warning that if we keep seeing zero movement behind the scenes toward a deal, we might very well be looking at a widespread resumption of military strikes. This shaky ceasefire can really only take so much pressure. All right, let's shift gears to part 3, the global oil shockwave.
We've mentioned the Strait of Hormuz a couple of times already, and for good reason. It is an absolutely critical global waterway for oil shipments. Remember Iran's red line about having authority over it, and the drone shootdowns happening right there? All of that geopolitical uncertainty instantly creates anxiety in global markets. In fact, that exact uncertainty drove global oil prices right back up on Thursday. The market just reacts immediately to any threat of that waterway being disrupted. Because of this, analysts are saying the US really needs to do more to fully reopen the strait for reliable oil shipments. As one analyst put it, I think we need to move a little quicker. The American people are paying quite a heavy tax. And that brilliantly illustrates the situation. It's not a tax taken out of your paycheck by the government. It is a hidden geopolitical tax that you end up paying every single time you fill up your gas tank or buy goods transported by fuel. So, the crucial point here is how this economic ripple effect actually plays out for you and me. Step 1, military actions and geopolitical uncertainty threaten to restrict oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. Step 2, because that global supply is threatened, oil prices spike. And step 3, everyday citizens absorb that cost as a hidden tax. When you break it down like that, foreign policy suddenly feels very, very local, doesn't it?
Finally, let's look at part 4, potential paths to peace.
The good news is that diplomacy is actively happening behind the scenes. Ironically, the extreme pressure of this shaky ceasefire is actually pushing all sides toward the negotiating table. Pakistan's foreign minister has stepped up to play a really vital mediating role between Iran and the US. And the immediate next step? He's heading to Washington, D.C. tomorrow for a highly critical meeting with Secretary Marco Rubio. This meeting could seriously be the linchpin for de-escalating everything before it spirals further out of control.
Which leaves us with a massive question to close on today. Can this behind-the-scenes mediation, these critical talks in Washington, actually succeed in reopening the Strait of Hormuz before military conflict resumes and that hidden economic tax on all of us climbs even higher? It is a literal race against time between diplomacy and a global economic fallout. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on the headlines, and as always, keep learning.